Dr. Elena Martinez walked through the white halls of the hospital ship UHS Mercy Dawn and felt proud of what she had built here. The ship was huge and clean and filled with the best medical equipment that human science could make. She was the chief doctor and had been working on this ship for 8 years now. Every day she helped save lives from many different alien races across the galaxy. The ship had 800 people working on it, and all of them were doctors or nurses or medical helpers. None of them carried weapons. None of them had ever fired a shot at another living being. They were healers, and that was all they wanted to be. The ship had Red Cross symbols painted on its white hull, so everyone in space would know this was a place of healing and not war. Captain Jake Morrison was a good man, who understood what the ship was for. He had been a military captain once, but now he only cared about getting sick and wounded people to safety. His job was to fly the ship to wherever people needed help most. He worked with Elena every day to make sure the wounded got the best care possible. The most interesting person on the ship was Dr. Alex Turner. He was young and quiet and spent most of his time studying alien biology. Alex knew more about how different alien bodies worked than almost anyone else in human space. He had files full of information about every known alien race. He knew their strengths and their weak points. He knew how their organs worked and how their blood moved, and how their brains thought. But Alex only used this knowledge to help heal people who were hurt or sick. Alex had gentle hands and a soft voice. When alien patients were scared, he would sit with them and explain what was happening in their own language. He had learned to speak the languages of dozens of different races just so he could comfort them better. The other doctors sometimes joked that Alex cared more about alien patients than human ones, but this was not true. Alex cared about all living things equally. The ship was currently flying near a star system called Kepler 442, where a big battle had just happened. The Galactic Coalition forces had fought against the Zephyrian Empire, and many soldiers from both sides were badly hurt. The Coalition had asked the Mercy Dawn to come and help treat their wounded soldiers. Elena stood in the main medical bay and watched her teams work on injured Altarian soldiers. The Altarians were tall blue beings with 4 arms, and they had been fighting the Zephyrians for months. These soldiers had terrible burns and broken bones, but they would live thanks to human medicine. The Zephyrians were very different from most other alien races. They looked like giant insects with hard shells and sharp claws. They were smart and mean, and they believed that showing mercy to enemies was a sign of weakness. Most other races in the galaxy thought the Zephyrians were too violent, but they were strong fighters with powerful ships. Alex came into the medical bay carrying a datapad full of notes about Altarian biology. He had been working on new ways to help their blue blood carry oxygen better after they got hurt. He smiled at Elena and showed her his latest research. "I think I found a way to help them heal faster," Alex said in his quiet voice. "Their blood. Chemistry is very different from ours, but I found some compounds that might help." Elena looked at his notes and nodded. Alex was always finding new ways to help their patients. She was glad to have him on her team, even though she sometimes worried that he worked too hard. He stayed up late every night reading about alien medicine and biology. The ship received a message from Coalition Command telling them that more wounded soldiers were coming. A transport ship was bringing 200 injured Altarians who needed immediate help. Elena told her teams to get ready for the new patients. Captain Morrison came to the medical bay to talk with Elena about where to put all the new patients. The ship was already pretty full, but they would find room somehow. They always found room for people who needed help. "We might need to use the cargo bays as temporary medical wards," Morrison said. "I know it's not ideal, but we can't turn away wounded soldiers." Elena agreed and started planning how to set up the extra medical areas. Alex offered to help design the new wards so they would work best for Altarian patients. He knew exactly what kind of environment they needed to heal. Properly, none of them knew that a Zephyrian war fleet was watching them from far away. Admiral Vextar had been tracking coalition movements in this star system, and he had noticed the hospital ship. He saw it as a chance to hurt his enemies even more. The humans on the Mercy Dawn believed that hospital ships were safe from attack. Every civilized race in the galaxy respected the rules about not attacking medical ships, but the Zephyrians had their own ideas about what was civilized and what was not. The attack came in the middle of the night when most of the patients were sleeping. Elena was in her office writing reports when the first explosion shook the entire ship. The lights went out for a moment, and then the emergency lighting came, on with a red glow. She heard screaming from somewhere deep in the ship. Captain Morrison's voice came over the ship's communication system. "All hands to emergency stations. We are under attack. This is not a drill." His voice was calm, but Elena could hear the shock underneath. No one had ever attacked a hospital ship before. Elena ran toward the medical bays where the screaming was loudest. When she got to Ward 7, she stopped and stared in horror. A huge hole had been blown in the side of the ship, and she could see stars through it. Medical beds were twisted and broken, and some of the Altarian patients were dead, and others were crying out in pain. The ship's emergency systems had sealed off the damaged areas with force fields, but the damage was already done. Elena counted at least 20 dead patients in Ward 7, alone. These were soldiers who had survived a terrible battle only to be killed while they were helpless in their medical beds. Alex appeared beside her carrying emergency medical supplies. His face was white with shock, but his hands were steady. Together, they started helping the patients who were still alive. An young Altarian soldier was trapped under a fallen beam, and Elena worked to free him while Alex treated his injuries. "Why would they do this?" the Altarian whispered in his own language. Alex understood and answered him softly while giving him medicine for the pain. More explosions hit other parts of the ship. Elena heard Morrison's voice again, saying that the attackers were Zephyrian ships. She could not believe what she was hearing. Even the Zephyrians had always respected hospital ships before this day. Communications Officer Lisa Grant's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, we are getting a message from the Zephyrian fleet. Admiral Vexitar is demanding that we surrender all Coalition patients to them immediately." Elena felt sick when she heard this. The Zephyrians wanted to take wounded soldiers from their beds and probably kill them. She looked around at all the hurt and scared patients depending on them for protection. Morrison's answer came quickly. "Tell Admiral Vextar that hospital ships do not surrender patients to anyone. We are protected by galactic law." The Zephyrian response was another missile that hit the ship's main power generator. Now they were running on emergency power only. Elena realized that the Zephyrians were not going to stop until they destroyed the ship completely. Alex was working on a badly injured human nurse when he suddenly stopped and looked up at Elena. Something had changed in his eyes. She had known Alex for 3 years and had never seen him look angry before. But now there was something cold and hard in his expression. "They attacked patients," Alex said quietly. "They attacked people who could not fight back." Elena nodded as she worked to stop bleeding from an Altarian's chest wound. "We have to focus on saving who we can," she said. But Alex was not listening anymore. He was staring at the dead bodies around them and thinking about something else. Elena saw him, looking at the genetic scanner he used to identify different alien blood types. She saw him thinking about all the biological data he had collected over the years. "Alex," she said sharply, "I need your help here." He came back to help her, but she could tell his mind was somewhere else now. They worked together for 2 hours, treating wounded patients and moving them to safer parts of the ship. The Zephyrians had stopped attacking for now, but their ships were still out there waiting. Captain Morrison called all senior staff to an emergency meeting in the command center. Elena and Alex joined the other department heads to discuss what to do next. The ship was badly damaged and they had lost almost 300 people, including patients and medical staff. "We've sent emergency messages to all coalition forces in the area," Morrison said. But the nearest military ships are still 6 hours away. The Zephyrians could finish us off any time they want. Elena asked why the attack had stopped. Morrison explained that Admiral Vextar was probably waiting to see if they would surrender their patients. The Zephyrian commander seemed to enjoy making them suffer while they decided. We could try to evacuate some patients to the escape pods, suggested Chief Engineer Bob Miller. At least save some of them. Morrison shook his head. The pods don't have life support for Altarians. They would die in space before anyone could rescue them. Alex had been quiet during the meeting, but now he spoke up. What if we could make the Zephyrians go away permanently? He said. Everyone looked at him. Elena felt worried about the tone in his voice. What do you mean, Alex? She asked. I mean, what if we could make sure they never attack another hospital ship again? Alex said. What if we could make sure they never attack anyone again? Morrison frowned. We're a medical ship, Alex. We don't have weapons that could fight their war fleet. Alex looked around the room at all the senior officers. We have something better than weapons, he said. We have detailed biological information on every known species in the galaxy, including the Zephyrians. Elena suddenly understood what Alex was thinking, and it scared her more than the Zephyrian attack had. Alex, no, she said. That's not what we do. They changed what we do when they murdered patients in their beds, Alex replied. His voice was still quiet, but there was something new in it now. Something that made Elena think of ice and death. Alex left the meeting and went back to his laboratory. Elena followed him and found him pulling up files on Zephyrian biology on his computer screens. Charts showing their nervous systems and genetic codes filled the room with blue light. Don't do this, Elena said. Don't become what they are. Alex turned to look at her, and she saw that the gentle doctor she knew was still there, but something else was there too now. I'm not becoming what they are, he said. I'm becoming what they made necessary. News of the attack on the Mercy Dawn spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Every major news network carried the story of Zephyrian forces attacking a clearly marked hospital ship and murdering wounded patients in their beds. Even alien races that usually stayed out of galactic politics spoke out against what had happened. The Altarian government issued a statement calling the attack a war crime that violated every law of civilized warfare. The peaceful Centaurian Federation condemned the Zephyrians in the strongest possible terms. Even some Zephyrian colonies sent secret messages saying they were ashamed of what their military had done. But Elena knew that words and condemnation would not bring back the 300 people who had died. She walked through the damaged sections of the ship and looked at the empty beds where patients had been sleeping when the attack came. Some of the dead had been children in the pediatric ward, young beings from different worlds who had been hurt in the war and brought to the humans for healing. Alex had been working in his laboratory for 3 days straight without sleeping. Elena brought him food and tried to get him to rest, but he would not stop what he was doing. His computer screens showed complex molecular diagrams and genetic sequences that she did not understand. She could see that he was designing something, but he would not tell her what it was. You need to sleep, Elena said as she set a tray of food next to his workstation. You can't help anyone if you collapse from exhaustion. Alex looked up at her with red eyes and gave her a tired smile. I'm almost finished, he said. Just a few more calculations and then I can rest. Elena looked at the diagrams on his screens and felt a chill run down her spine. She recognized some of the molecular structures from her medical training. They looked like viruses, but they were unlike anything she had ever seen before. These were not natural viruses that evolved over millions of years. These were designed viruses made by someone who understood exactly how they would work. Alex, what are you making? She asked quietly. He saved his work and turned to face her completely. For a moment, she saw the old Alex in his eyes, the gentle doctor who cared about all living things, But then the new Alex came back and his expression grew cold again. "I'm making justice," he said. "I'm making sure that what happened here never happens again." Elena sat down in the chair next to his workstation. "Tell me exactly what you're planning." Alex pulled up a new set of diagrams that showed Zephyrian brain chemistry in detail. "The Zephyrians have a unique neurological structure," he explained. "Their brains use a specific type of chemical transmission that no other known species has. I can design a retrovirus that targets only this transmission system." Elena studied the diagrams and began to understand what Alex had created. "This would kill them," she said. "Yes," Alex replied simply. "It would kill every Zephyrian it comes into contact with, but it would be completely harmless to every other species in the galaxy." Elena felt sick as she realized the full scope of what Alex was planning. "This isn't medicine, Alex. This is a weapon of mass destruction." "They made it a weapon when they attacked our patients," Alex said. "I'm just making sure it's the most effective weapon possible." Captain Morrison came into the laboratory at that moment. He had been checking on the repair work throughout the ship and looked exhausted. When he saw what was on Alex's computer screens, his face went pale. "Dr. Turner," Morrison said carefully, "please tell me you're not planning what I think you're planning." Alex stood up and faced the captain. "I'm planning to eliminate the threat that attacked us," he said. "I'm planning to make sure no other hospital ship ever has to go through what we went through." Morrison looked at the viral diagrams and shook his head. "This is genocide, Alex. You're talking about wiping out an entire species." "They started the genocide when they murdered helpless patients," Alex replied. "I'm just finishing it." Elena stood between the two men and tried to think of something to say that would change Alex's mind. She had known him for years as a peaceful man who would not even kill insects in his laboratory. But the attack had changed something fundamental inside him. "Alex," she said softly, "if you do this, you'll be just as bad as they are." Alex looked at her for a long moment, and she thought she saw doubt in his eyes. But then he shook his head. "No, Elena. They attacked the helpless. I'm attacking the guilty. There's a difference." Communications Officer Grant's voice came over the intercom at that moment. "Captain, we're detecting multiple Zephyrian fleets moving toward our position. It looks like they're planning to finish what they started." Morrison activated his communicator. "How many ships, Lisa?" "At least 40 vessels, sir. 3 full battle. Fleets. They'll be here in less than 6 hours." Elena felt her heart sink. Even if coalition forces arrived, they would not be strong enough to fight 3 Zephyrian battle fleets. The aliens were coming back to destroy the Mercy Dawn completely and kill everyone on board. Alex walked over to a storage unit and pulled out a small containment device. Inside was a vial of clear liquid that looked harmless, but Elena knew it. Contained the most dangerous weapon ever created by human science. "There's enough viral agent in here to contaminate their entire fleet," Alex said. "All I need is a way to deliver it to their ships." Morrison stared at the vial. "Even if this works, Alex, even if you can stop them from attacking us, you'll have committed genocide. Every Zephyrian in their fleet will die." "Good," Alex said coldly. "Maybe their deaths will teach other species not to attack hospital ships." Elena realized that Alex had made up his mind completely. The gentle doctor she had known was gone, and in his place was someone who could calculate the death of millions without showing any emotion. The attack had not just killed patients on the Mercy Dawn. It had killed something inside Alex Turner as well. "If you're going to do this," Elena said quietly, "then at least let me help you. Don't carry this burden alone." Alex looked surprised by her offer. "You said this was wrong." "It is wrong," Elena replied, "but so is attacking our patients. Sometimes there are no good choices left. Sometimes you can only choose which evil is necessary." Alex explained his weapon in detail to Elena and Captain Morrison in the privacy of his laboratory. The retrovirus he had created was more sophisticated than anything that had ever existed before. It could survive in the vacuum of space for hours and spread through ship ventilation systems like a deadly fog. Once it reached a Zephyrian, it would attach to their unique brain chemistry and cause their own nervous system to destroy itself. The virus targets only the specific neurotransmitters that Zephyrians use, Alex said as he showed them molecular diagrams. Human brains use different chemicals. Altarian brains use different chemicals. Every other known species uses different chemicals. This will only affect Zephyrians. Elena studied the research and had to admit that Alex's work was brilliant, even though it terrified her. He had spent years learning about alien biology to help heal them, and now he was using that same knowledge to create the perfect weapon against one specific species. "How would you deliver it to their ships?" Morrison asked. Alex pulled up schematics of the ship's shuttle bay. "I can load the viral agent into one of our medical shuttles and fly it directly into their fleet. The shuttle's medical transponder will make them think it's an evacuation ship. By the time they realize what it really is, the virus will already be spreading through their ventilation systems." Morrison shook his head. "That would be a suicide mission, Alex. You'd never make it back to the ship." "I know," Alex replied calmly. "But 300 people died when they attacked us. If my death can prevent them from killing anyone else, then it's worth it." Elena felt tears forming in her eyes as she realized that Alex was planning to sacrifice himself to deliver his weapon. The gentle doctor who had spent his life healing others was now prepared to die to protect the people he cared about. "There has to be another way," she said. "We can't lose you too." Alex smiled at her, and for a moment she saw the old Alex again. "You won't lose me, Elena. You'll remember me every time you save a life that might have been lost if the Zephyrians had been allowed to continue attacking medical ships." Chief Engineer Miller came into the laboratory at that moment, carrying damage reports from around the ship. When he saw what they were discussing, his face grew serious. "Are you really planning to use biological weapons against the Zephyrians?" Miller asked. "Yes," Alex replied without hesitation. Miller was quiet for a moment as he thought about this. He was an older man who had served in the military before joining the medical service. He understood warfare better than most of the other crew members. "I've seen what the Zephyrians do to prisoners," Miller said finally. "If they capture this ship, they won't just kill us quickly. They'll torture everyone on board for information about coalition defenses. The patients in our medical bays will suffer before they die." Elena had heard stories about Zephyrian prison camps, but had never wanted to believe they were true. Now she realized that Miller was probably right. If the aliens captured the Mercy Dawn, everyone on board would face a fate worse than death. "So, you support what Alex is planning?" Morrison asked Miller. "I support stopping monsters before they can hurt more innocent people," Miller replied. "If Dr. Turner has found a way to do that, then I'm willing to help him." Alex began preparing the viral weapon for deployment while the others watched. He worked with steady hands and showed no emotion as he loaded the deadly agent into a special containment system designed for the shuttle. Elena realized that Alex had changed completely from the man she used to know. The attack on the hospital ship had burned away his gentleness and left behind something hard and cold. "Once I launch the shuttle, there will be no way to call back. The virus," Alex said. "Every Zephyrian in their fleet will die within hours of exposure. There will be no survivors and no chance for them to develop immunity." Morrison asked Alex if he was certain the virus would not affect other species. Alex showed him test results proving that the weapon was completely specific to Zephyrian biology. It would be invisible and harmless to every other form of life in the galaxy. "This is what they forced us to become," Alex said as he sealed the viral container. "They attacked healers and made us into killers. But at least we'll be efficient killers." Elena helped Alex load the weapon into the shuttle while Morrison prepared the launch sequence. The shuttle looked like any other medical transport, but it now carried enough biological agent to wipe out an entire species. She wondered if they were making the right choice, or if they were about to become the very monsters they were fighting against. "Elena," Alex said as they finished loading the shuttle. I need you to promise me something. What? She asked. Promise me that after this is over, you'll go back to being a healer. Don't let what we're doing today change who you are. The galaxy needs doctors, not killers. Elena looked at her friend and colleague who was about to sacrifice himself to protect others. I promise, she said. But Alex, you could still change your mind. We could try to find another way. Alex shook his head. There is no other way. The Zephyrians understand only force and death, so that's what I'm going to give them. The ship's sensors detected the approaching Zephyrian fleet, and Morrison announced that they had less than 2 hours before the aliens arrived. Alex climbed into the shuttle and began running through the pre-flight checklist. Elena stood outside the shuttle door and watched him prepare for what would certainly be his final mission. Alex, she said quietly. He looked up at her from the pilot's seat. Yes, thank you for protecting us. Alex smiled sadly. Thank you for being my friend, Elena. Thank you for understanding why this has to happen. Elena stepped back as Alex sealed the shuttle door and started the engines. She watched through the observation window as the shuttle moved toward the launch bay. In a few minutes, Alex Turner would fly out into space, carrying death to an entire species. She wondered if history would remember him as a hero or a monster. Morrison's voice came over the intercom. All crew members prepare for shuttle launch. Dr. Turner is beginning his mission. The shuttle launched from the Mercy Dawn, and Alex found himself alone in space flying toward the largest Zephyrian battle fleet ever assembled. 40 warships hung in the darkness like predatory insects waiting to strike. He could see their flagship, in the center of the formation. It was a massive vessel called the Apex Predator that carried Admiral Vextar and over 10,000 Zephyrian crew members. Alex activated his communication system and sent a message to the Zephyrian fleet. Admiral Vextar, this is Dr. Alex Turner from the hospital ship Mercy Dawn. I am requesting permission to come aboard your flagship. The response came quickly. Vextar's voice was filled with the clicking sounds that Zephyrians made when they were amused. A human doctor wants to visit my ship. Are you coming to surrender your patients to us, Dr. Turner? No, Admiral, Alex replied as he guided the shuttle toward the enemy fleet. I'm coming to deliver something to you personally, something you earned when you attacked our hospital ship. Vextar laughed, which sounded like glass breaking over the communication channel. Your species never learns human. You think one small shuttle can threaten our entire fleet. You are either very brave or very stupid. Maybe both, Alex said quietly as he checked the viral weapon one final time. The Zephyrian ships were not firing at him yet because they thought his shuttle was just a medical transport trying to evacuate wounded from the hospital ship. They had no idea that he was carrying the most dangerous biological weapon ever created. Alex flew past the outer defense ships and headed directly toward the flagship. Admiral, Alex said over the communication channel, I want you to know that what's about to happen is justice for the patients you murdered. Every life you're about to lose is payment for the lives you took from helpless beings in medical beds. Vextar's amusement turned to suspicion. What are you talking about human? What do you think you can accomplish with one shuttle? Alex was now close enough to see the details of the Apex Predator's hull. It was covered with weapon ports and armor plating, designed to make it nearly indestructible in combat. But armor could not protect against what Alex was bringing them. I'm accomplishing the end of your species, Admiral, Alex said calmly. I'm making sure you never attack another hospital ship again. The shuttle's proximity alarm started going, off as Zephyrian fighters moved to intercept him. Alex ignored them and continued flying toward the flagship. He was close enough now that he could deploy the viral weapon and guarantee it would reach the enemy ships. Destroy that shuttle, Vextar ordered his fighters, but Alex was already activating the weapon deployment system. The shuttle's hull split, open in a carefully controlled explosion that released the viral agent in an expanding cloud of invisible death. The cloud engulfed Alex's shuttle and continued spreading toward the nearest Zephyrian warships. Alex's shuttle was destroyed in the explosion, but he had accomplished his mission. The virus was now spreading through space toward the enemy fleet. It would reach the first ships within minutes and begin spreading through their ventilation systems like a plague designed by science rather than nature. Back on the Mercy Dawn, Elena watched the explosion through the ship's telescopes and felt her heart break. Alex was gone, but his sacrifice might save everyone else on the hospital ship. She found herself crying for the gentle doctor who had been forced to become a weapon of mass destruction. Captain Morrison stood beside her watching the Zephyrian fleet. "Do you think it will work?" he asked quietly. "If anyone could design a perfect biological weapon, it would be Alex," Elena replied. "He knew more about alien biology than anyone else in human space." They did not have to wait long to find out if Alex's weapon would work. Within 10 minutes, they started receiving panicked communications from the Zephyrian ships. The virus was spreading faster than the aliens had expected, and their crew members were beginning to show symptoms. "Admiral Vextar, this is Captain Morrison, of the hospital ship Mercy Dawn," Morrison said over the communication channel. "We're receiving reports of medical emergencies on your ships. We're prepared to offer medical assistance." The response was a roar of rage from Vextar. "You did this somehow, human. You attacked us with some kind of biological weapon." "We're a hospital ship, Admiral," Morrison replied. "We don't carry biological weapons, but we do carry medical supplies. That might help your crew members if you're willing to accept our assistance." Elena knew that Morrison was lying about the biological weapon, but she also knew that no medicine could help the Zephyrians now. Alex's virus was specifically designed to be incurable. Once it reached their nervous systems, there would be no way to stop it. More communications came from the Zephyrian ships as the virus continued to spread. Crew members were collapsing at their stations, and the ships were starting to lose power as their operators became unable to function. The virus was working exactly as Alex had designed it to work. Admiral Vextar's voice came over the communication channel one final time. His words were slurred and barely understandable as the virus attacked his brain chemistry. "What did you do to us, human? What kind of monsters are you?" Elena answered him, even though she knew he probably could not understand her anymore. "We're the kind of monsters you created when you attacked our patients, Admiral. We're the kind of monsters you made necessary." The communication channel went silent as Vextar succumbed to the virus. One by one, the lights on the Zephyrian ships began going out as their crews died at their stations. Within 2 hours, the entire fleet was dark and drifting in space. 40 warships that had come to destroy the hospital ship were now floating. Tombs filled with the bodies of their crews. Elena stood in the observation deck and looked out at the dead fleet. She felt no satisfaction at their destruction, only sadness that it had been necessary. Alex had saved everyone on the Mercy Dawn, but the cost had been terrible. An entire species would never attack another hospital ship, but only because that species no longer existed. "It's over," Morrison said as he joined her at the observation window. "No," Elena replied quietly. "It's just beginning. The galaxy is going to learn what happens when you attack human medical ships. Alex made sure of that." The news of what happened to the Zephyrian fleet spread across the galaxy even faster than news of the original attack on the Mercy Dawn. Within days, every major government and military organization knew that an entire Zephyrian battle fleet had been destroyed by a single human doctor using a biological weapon. The implications were clear to everyone who heard the story. Humanity had just demonstrated that they possessed weapons capable of eliminating entire species. More importantly, they had shown that they were willing to use those weapons when their medical personnel were attacked. The galaxy suddenly realized that the peaceful humans who ran hospital ships might be the most dangerous beings in known space. The Zephyrian High Command surrendered 3 days after their fleet was destroyed. They sent messages to every coalition, government begging for peace and promising never to attack medical ships again. The proud warrior race that had terrorized other species for decades was now terrified of what the humans might do to them next. Elena stood in the rebuilt medical bay of the Mercy Dawn and tried to focus on her work. New patients were arriving every day as word spread that the famous hospital ship was operating again. But everything felt different now. The medical staff worked with the same dedication as before, but there was something harder in their eyes. They had learned that sometimes healing required killing. Captain Morrison called a staff meeting 6 months after the attack. The ship had been completely repaired and was better equipped than ever before. But now it traveled with an escort of coalition warships, and all medical personnel received combat training alongside their medical education. "The galaxy has changed," Morrison told his senior staff. "Hospital ships are no longer assumed to be helpless targets. Every species knows what happened to the Zephyrians, and they understand the message Alex Turner sent them." Elena looked around, the meeting room at her colleagues. Chief Engineer Miller had installed new defensive systems throughout the ship. Communications Officer Grant had established direct links to coalition military commands. Even the medical staff now carried weapons, training certificates along with their healing credentials. "Are we still healers?" asked Dr. Susan Park, who had joined the crew recently. "Or have we become something else?" Elena considered the question carefully before answering. "We're healers who have learned that sometimes the best way to protect innocent life is to eliminate those who would destroy it. Alex showed us that mercy and ruthlessness can exist in the same person when the situation requires it." The ship received a priority message from Coalition headquarters informing them that they had been chosen to participate in a new medical program. Hospital ships would now work directly with military forces to ensure that wounded soldiers received immediate treatment, while also serving as a deterrent against attacks on medical facilities. Elena read the message and realized that Alex's sacrifice had created a new type of warfare. Medical ships were no longer neutral parties in galactic conflicts. They were symbols of humanity's promise to heal the innocent and destroy those who would harm the helpless. A year after the attack, Elena received permission to establish a memorial garden in one of the ship's recreational areas. She planted flowers from dozens of different worlds to represent all the species that had been saved by human medicine. In the center of the garden, she placed a simple plaque with Alex Turner's name and final message. The plaque read, "Dr. Alex Turner gave his life to ensure that those who attack the helpless face absolute consequences. His sacrifice reminds us that the greatest mercy is sometimes the elimination of those who show no mercy to others." Medical students from across human space came to visit the memorial and learn about what happened on the Mercy Dawn. Elena would tell them Alex's story and explain how a gentle doctor had become the weapon that changed galactic warfare forever. "Dr. Turner believed that some acts are so terrible they require perfect responses," Elena would tell the students. "He showed the galaxy that humanity's capacity for healing is matched by our capacity for precise elimination of threats to innocent life." The students would listen carefully, and Elena could see them thinking about what they would do if faced with the same choice Alex had faced. Most of them hoped they would never have to find out, but all of them understood that the option now existed. Other species began developing their own biological weapons programs after learning what humans had accomplished, but they soon discovered that creating species-specific viruses required detailed knowledge of alien biology that took decades to acquire. Only the humans who had spent years healing other species possessed the necessary information to create such precise weapons. This gave humanity a unique position in galactic politics. They were known as healers who could become killers when necessary. Other species respected their medical ships not just because they provided excellent care, but because attacking them meant facing weapons that could eliminate entire civilizations. Elena sometimes wondered if Alex would be proud of what his sacrifice had accomplished. The galaxy was certainly safer for medical personnel now. Hospital ships traveled freely through war zones without fear of attack. Wounded soldiers from all species received treatment without worrying about becoming targets. but the cost had been the innocence of everyone who served on medical ships. They could no longer pretend that healing and killing were completely separate activities. They had learned that sometimes the best way to save lives was to end the lives of those who threatened innocent people. The Mercy Dawn continued its mission of healing throughout the galaxy. But now every alien species that saw the white ship with red crosses knew that it carried more than medical equipment. It carried the promise that humanity would protect the helpless with absolute dedication and eliminate threats with scientific precision. Elena often stood in Alex's memorial garden and remembered her friend who had been forced to choose between his principles and his patience. He had chosen to save the innocent by destroying the guilty, and his choice had changed the nature of galactic civilization forever. The galaxy had learned that attacking human healers was the fastest way to face human killers. It was a lesson that would never be forgotten and never need to be taught again.